A decision in the Drejon Reed case finding a lack of evidence to charge the officer involved.
We want to welcome in Carl Brizzi, former Marion County prosecutor. Carl, good to see you. You heard the announcement today. Your first reaction?
So I was a little surprised at the way that they handled the announcement in terms of bifurcating the special prosecutor talking and then having a separate press conference with the state police. I thought it was unusual that they ended the first press conference by not answering any questions citing grand jury secrecy, and then pivoting to the second press conference where they literally showed whoever was watching and listening almost all of the relevant evidence presented to the grand jury. I thought it was really actually a great strategy, nothing that I had ever seen implemented before.
Based on what you heard, I just kind of want to get your personal take on this. Is there any doubt as to whether criminal charges should have been pursued? Can you even say by what you saw?
Oh, no, I can definitively say by what I saw that there was that no criminal charges should have been pursued in this case. And in fact, I was a prosecutor more than a decade ago, and had this case presented itself to us, the decision, had we made it internally, would be a fairly easy decision to make. In this day and age, fast forward more than 10 years, and in an effort to be as transparent as possible and to allay fears of, special treatment or cover up or, some of the things that we're hearing now throughout the country, this was the right way to do it. And in fact, I thought that Rosemary Curry, the special prosecutor, showed the appropriate amount of emotion in terms of how having to deal with this case, being a Black woman, having two Black sons, the toll that it had on her. And I thought that her emotion was appropriate, and then appropriately she pivoted and became sort of the professional prosecutor again and answered the questions directly.
Yeah, it was pretty emotional, and as you mentioned, she really did quickly pivot. We heard several questions about who fired that first shot. Does that really factor into this decision, Carl?
Yes, it would be could be a different story if the officer was the first person to fire. I don't think there's any evidence that would persuade me that that's in fact what happened. They had the two shells that were conclusively linked to Deshaun Reed. And what's quite amazing about all of this was that it was actually the videotape from Deshaun's phone that allowed the process to be so transparent, right? And so it was just sort of this, just a bunch of lucky factors coming together that allowed the investigators to be so transparent in their decision. Because normally, you wouldn't be able to just release all of the evidence that was presented to the grand jury. So it really is kind of an unusual case. But it does underscore what law enforcement from this point on looks like. Body cameras and city cameras and social media cameras and all of that in an effort to allay the fears that there's a cover-up.
And just for viewers who may be unfamiliar with the process of a special prosecutor and a grand jury, it is correct to say that Special Prosecutor Curry had a decision to send this to a grand jury. Can you talk about what goes into that decision? In the environment that we're in today, is it more heightened to, a lot more attention put on that decision?
Yeah, that's a great question. The decision to send it to a grand jury is for all of the reasons that we've talked about, right? In terms of presenting all of the available evidence to citizens of the county. And even though it was a Madison County special prosecutor, the people who decided the grand jurors were from Marion County. So they were from the county in which this took place. So I think that, that's important to highlight. And those citizens that made up the grand jury, after reviewing the evidence, made the decision that there wasn't sufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges, which is different than how 95% of criminal cases are charged. Most criminal cases are charged by the unilateral decision of the prosecutor and the prosecutor's staff. There's a very, very small percentage of cases like this one that actually go to the citizens of the county to decide not only if criminal charges are filed, but what criminal charges are filed. In this case, they did a no bill, which means that there is no indictment.
Former Marion County prosecutor Carl Brizzi. Carl, thank you for taking some time with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and we will have more on this after the break. Stay with us.